Hey, hi friends. So this is the million-dollar question. Can Alcaraz become the next Federer? A lot of different commentators, experts are asking this question. They are thinking about it. And to be honest, definitely the talent that Alcaraz has is very promising. And the achievements that he has made just being a 20-year-old is outstanding. It's amazing. And definitely this question comes to our mind because when we see Alcaraz play, he has got a lot of good qualities in his game. He's a complete player. And why I have, gone for this video and I'm comparing Alcaraz with Federer is because I feel that Alcaraz's power in his game, the aggressive play that he brings to the court, I think that is something that I feel it's similar to Federer as well as the talent. So when you talk about talent, I think for everyone or for most of the people, Federer is the name that comes to mind, right? Similarly, if you see Alcaraz, he does a lot of things on the court which most of the other players won't be able to do. He hits a lot of good drop shots, backhand down the line, powerful forehand. He has got nice touch at the net, and the shots that he produced in the French Open, if you saw against Djokovic, running, backwards. It was quite similar to what Federer has produced against an Albanian in 2006. This is just an example, but the point that I'm trying to make is there are some shots that he brings to the court which no other players can bring. So that is why we are comparing Alcaraz with the next Federer. Could he become the next Federer? Yes, he can. But I also want to clarify that having said that, it is still to be seen. It's very early to predict anything. Just by looking at the talent, we are making this prediction. I think when Federer started playing well, we all started comparing Federer to Sampras, even though he hadn't won more Grand Slams than Sampras, but still the comparison was there, the talk was there. It's similar this time around also. The talk is there for Alcaraz. And the reason is his recent results, because results always prove a lot of things which conversations don't, right? So in Wimbledon, the way Alcaraz was able to beat Djokovic when Djokovic was playing well, he was almost at his peak and he was the favorite. So I think it would have been really difficult for any other player to come up with that level of play and finish the match the way Alcaraz was able to finish it, right? So let's do the analysis. We'll talk about the similarities, the differences between Alcaraz and the top three or top four. I would also like to include Andy Murray in the mix because he has been so consistent over the years. For 10 years, 15 years, he was always making the semis. He was being defeated by either Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic. And eventually, when they were not playing well, Murray was also able to beat them and win Grand Slams. So I still think it's big four and not the big three. But because Djokovic has most of the qualities that Andy Murray also has, so we usually compare Alcaraz to Djokovic more. But to be respectful, I think big four is the lot that we should compare Alcaraz to. Okay, so let's get started. So these are Djokovic's comments after the Wimbledon final, and he clearly mentioned that he hasn't played a player like him ever. And the reason, what I feel, is because Alcaraz is such a complete player. Like, he doesn't have any weaknesses. If you see him, players like Davidenko, David Ferrer, or the consistent players, right, who don't have a weakness as such, those come to mind. Obviously, Alcaraz is more talented in terms of the other styles. He can also play aggressive. He can hit with a lot of power. His return of serve is also very good. So when you play against him, you would not know like what is the strategy to beat this guy. And that is what happened with Djokovic. And even though Djokovic is a very good player on grass, I still feel he had to be more aggressive in that final. Perhaps he didn't anticipate or he didn't expect Alcaraz to play that well. He himself mentioned that as well in the post-match ceremony. So that is what he has said, that he thinks there are certain elements from Roger, Rafa, and Djokovic, and I think we all would agree with that. So let's move ahead. So let's first compare the similarities of Alcaraz with the big three or the big four, right? So speed, obviously, it's similar to Nadal, Djokovic, Murray. All of these players, top players, the legends, have great movement on court. They are able to cover the ground on almost all surfaces. Backhand down the line, I'm comparing it with Djokovic because of the power that Alcaraz can generate off that side. Murray also has a very good backhand down the line, and even Nadal also has a very solid backhand down the line. But Djokovic is the best, and I think after him, Alcaraz also has a very good chance of bringing his backhand to the same quality, such as Djokovic. Now, for power and aggressive player, it is very similar to Federer, and that is why I have made this video and I have compared him to Federer's game. So he has a lot of power on forehand and backhand, and what that does is it gives you such an advantage, like having a defensive ability like Nadal and Djokovic, having a consistent game, having a lot of topspin on his shots, all this is okay. But what if you also had the ability to inject power whenever you wanted in a rally? It is so difficult for the opponent to anticipate or play safe, right? Because the opponent would always have in their mind, like, this guy can at any time in the rally, he can generate power and hit a very aggressive shot, and then it completely brings the opponent to the back foot. So that is the confusion that I also think Djokovic had in the final when he was playing. He didn't know whether to play defensive or whether to just play a rally, normal rally, or whether to be aggressive. And combine that with the windy conditions where Djokovic was not timing the ball well, I think he didn't, make the right choice. He still tried to play a defensive game or a normal rally game, and that did not work. And that is what happens if you play against aggressive players. If they are playing well, the match is mostly on their racket, the match is mostly on their hand. Now, it goes both ways. If they are out of form, obviously you have more chances to win against them. That is why I think many of the players have beaten Federer, because sometimes he's out of form and his shots are not working. They are going out. A lot of unforced errors are there. With Nadal and Djokovic, they are still able to win the matches even if they are not playing that well. And the reason for that is the same, because they play a much safer style of play, and they can manage a victory even if they are not playing well. For Federer, his timing, his aggression is his game. If that is not working, he can still try to do different things, but then it's like taking his unique power away from him. So that is what happens. So return of serve is very similar to Djokovic, and the testimony to that is the Wimbledon final. Djokovic has a very good first serve, but if you saw, he was not able to make a lot of aces in that match, and that was due to how well the Alcaraz return game was. He was able to hit good deep returns, and because Djokovic was unsure what to do after the return, he was just getting engaged in a normal rally, and it always gave advantage to Alcaraz. Net game is also similar to Federer. We have seen a lot of good shots, good volleys. He has a great touch. So, no doubt about that. Alcaraz's game is very good. He has good variety as well. And evidence again is the Wimbledon final, where in after the second set, or like in the beginning of the second set, Alcaraz started playing with a lot of change of pace in his shots. He started using the slice, trying to slow down the pace, and then using the point construction technique that he has to just slow down the pace and then be aggressive suddenly in one or two shots when he got time to set it up, right? So that was the strategy or pattern of play applied by Alcaraz. Mental strength is similar to Djokovic and Nadal. I don't think I need to talk about it. We have seen that in the Wimbledon final, in the US Open against Sinner, epic five setter, right? So Alcaraz is also a player who has won a lot of five setters, and he is not afraid to go for his shots. So very, very courageous player as well. Now let's talk about Federer and Alcaraz key strengths comparison. So on the right hand side, you see Alcaraz's strengths, and on the left hand side, in a moment, you will see Federer's strengths as well. So if you talk about this, the forehand, right? So forehand, I think obviously Federer has one of the best forehands in the history of the game, right? Alcaraz's forehand is also very good. It has more power than Federer's forehand, but I still think He lacks the consistency that Federer has, the preparation that Federer has because of the grip. Because Federer, when he hits the forehand, it's not a lot of preparation, right? So he can quickly adjust on the return or on the cross court down the line. He can play well on quick surfaces. For Alcaraz, what we have seen is if you go hard at his forehand and he doesn't get time to prepare well, then he can make some errors of that wing. So that is why I say that Federer's forehand is better. But then again, Alcaraz's forehand can be called as a strength, and definitely it is a weapon for him. When we talk about the serve, now here on the left hand side, I will again mention that we are referring to Federer's strengths, and on the right hand side, we have mentioned Alcaraz's key strengths. So Federer's serve, I think I don't need to talk about it. It is the best in the world in terms of accuracy and consistency. And I think that is where Alcaraz needs to improve. Even though he has a big first serve in terms of pace, and in Wimbledon final, he was able to produce some good big serves when he actually needed them. But overall, in general, I still feel that there is a scope of improvement on the Alcaraz's serve. So that is one point that he should look at. The aggressive play, it's very similar to Federer, so I will treat that as a similarity. Net game, again, it's very similar to Federer. I would say Federer still has better volleys, but we haven't seen that much from Alcaraz yet to make a definite comparison. But Alcaraz is very talented and a very good player on the net, especially when he is just 20 years old. So here he has a lot of time to improve. The slice, again, Federer has a tremendous slice. He can change direction. He uses that very well. He used to use that very well against Djokovic, the down the line slice, low and deep, and that could really trouble Djokovic and any other player who was like 6'4" or 6'5", and they didn't like to bend down for hitting the shots. Federer's strategy worked against those guys like Medvedev or Juan Martin Del Potro. So those players come to mind, right? Movement on court, obviously, when Federer was in his prime. That's why I have mentioned prime here, because as the days went on and Federer's game level declined, obviously some of these strengths were not there for him. But I'm talking about the prime years, so definitely movement on court. If you watch 2005, 2006, 2007 as well, Federer was moving very well on court, right? Then the anticipation, I think it's there in both the players. And then the decision making. So again, I have highlighted this in red because this is something that Federer had very well in his prime years. He exactly knew which shot to play, what to hit, when to approach the net, when to go for a backhand, when to go for down the line, when to go for cross court. So most of the times you never saw him make any unusual errors, and he was able to win by hitting clean winners. Now it's similar for Alcaraz, but what we have seen as of now, and this is probably because he's just 20 years old, and he is just like learning a lot of things. He has a lot of more hunger, more power, and a bit of impatience, you can say, uh, and that is natural to have when you're young, right? So what I would say is the decision making sometimes is something which could let down for Alcaraz, and we saw that in the Wimbledon final as well when he suddenly tried a drop shot out of nowhere in the tiebreak, I think it was, and he lost the point. It could have been lethal for him. He would have lost the set as well had Djokovic taken any of those set points, right? So it just shows that there is some decision making improvement that needs to be made. And that is why sometimes what happens when I talk about decision making, I'll also show a slide for that. But what it means is basically, when do you play a percentage shot and when do you go for a risky shot? This is the sort of decision making that players have to make at that moment. They have to decide what is best for them, what would work for them. So it's not always like you have to be courageous and go for a winner. You also have to think like, is this the right point? Should I, and how is my opponent playing? Is my opponent missing a lot of shots? Should I just put the ball in play, or should I hit a slice? How are the conditions? Is it windy? Is it more riskier to go for a powerful shot, or is it better to go for a topspin shot? where to return the serve. So all those things come into mind when you talk about decision making. So that is where I think Alcaraz needs to improve a little bit. So these are all the similarities in the strengths when I compare Federer and Alcaraz. Now, when you talk about weaknesses, I think points under pressure is the most, like, was the biggest weakness that Federer had in his game. And we have like more than 20, 30 examples of that where he should have won the point, he should have won the game, he should have won the match, he should have won the Grand Slam, but he was not able to do that because he missed an easy shot or maybe went for too much on the big point. So that is something that Federer always had to deal with. And if he didn't have that weakness, I think he would almost be a perfect player and would have won many more Grand Slam titles. The second weakness, if you talk about, is the backhand on clay for Federer. Now, it's not a weakness against most of the players, but obviously against Nadal, that is a weakness, and that is where I think Alcaraz's backhand is better because he has a two-hander, so naturally he can control the ball well. Plus, he also has a very, very good ability to change directions. He can go down the line all the time, and that is why he has been able to beat Nadal on clay on the smaller tournaments, right? Now, this is like not much relevant, but it is to be pointed that Federer's smash on a certain points or big points against Nadal or any other player, sometimes it lets him down. He uh, either misses the smash or he hits it very safe, and it gives a chance for the opponent to hit a passing shot. We have seen that, but with Alcaraz, I feel that he has a better smash than Federer, and obviously Djokovic, because Djokovic I think has the weakest smash relative to Federer, Nadal, and Alcaraz. He misses a lot of shots there, but so not that relevant because usually it doesn't affect the result of the match. But still, on the important points, this is something to think about. So I think I've already covered the decision making point, but again, mentioning that that is something which Alcaraz needs to work on. And the reason behind this point is that Alcaraz has got so much variety. He has got so many options to play. It's very difficult for him also to understand or to make a decision like which shot is the best or the safest for him, because it is a very quick decision to make, and it is also not the same with each player. Sometimes backhand down the line might work with some player, drop shot will work with some other player, so it will be different with different players, right? So that is where I think he needs to maybe focus a little more on changing pace on the shots and applying the slice more, and just uh, trying to get engaged in a rally. And he could do that more on clay, like for trial purpose or for improvement. If you want to experiment, he can do that on clay. On the hard courts or grass, I think if he plays aggressive, that is better for him, and that would bring better results for him. I have covered serve already, so just wanted to mention it here. Now, this is a decision making example. Now, if you see this screenshot, you can see that it's a rally ball. Sinner has just hit a backhand to Alcaraz's backhand. Now, Alcaraz has got a lot of options here. Now, if you see Sinner, he's standing on his backhand side, so probably he's ready to face the green line. If Alcaraz tries to go for a cross-court backhand, Sinner is able to control that, and the rally goes on. Now, for Alcaraz, he has to make a decision. If he feels that the green shot will not bring him any good in terms of winning the rally, he could try the yellow shot, which is to be deep in the court, to go deep in the court, in the middle of the court, and that would prevent any angles for Sinner. And at the same time, because the shot would be deep, it might, you know, get help get a weak reply from Sinner or a short reply from Sinner, and then Alcaraz can control the point. But then again, he has the option to go down the line as well. Now he's able to change directions on the ball very well, but again, it's a low percentage shot, because 9 out of 10 times or maybe 6 out of 10 times you would make it, but the green line you would make it 9 out of 10 times, right? So this is what I mean when I say percentage shot. So low percentage for the orange line, which is the backhand down the line, and red is actually the drop shot. So that also he can try, but Sinner is not that far behind the baseline, so I'm not sure if the drop shot would work. Plus, it's very risky to play that shot. You have to be absolutely accurate and have the perfect timing. So that is the least percentage shot for me, and that is the decision making that Alcaraz needs to make. Now, against different players, he would need to make a different decision. Now he has got so many options. All the four shots he can play, right? So that is where he needs to decide which is the best. And on important points, this is very crucial because this could change the direction of the match. So I'm not saying that he is bad at decision making. He is very good at decision making, but this is where there is slight scope for improvement, for, in my opinion. So does Alcaraz need to change anything? I think I've already covered most of the points, but let's see. Improve the decision making, improve the serve. Obviously, if he could improve the first serve's accuracy, the percentage, and obviously he has a good net game, so he could hit a good serve. He could do a serve and volley as well, and he has so much power. He can use that 1-2 punch, 1-2 pattern of play to good effect, and he'll be almost impossible to beat if he can improve the serve even more. The third point is actually very important. He needs to maintain his focus, motivation, fitness, and consistency. Now, all these four things are super important for him, because now remember, we are trying to compare him with Federer and the big four, right? So, what that means is he has to play at this level for the next 10 years or 15 years. Only then he would have the similar results, similar achievements like the big four. So focus is the number one thing, because he has already achieved so much. It's very easy to get carried away with all the success, and it could be hard to find the motivation as well. But here I would like to also acknowledge and appreciate Alcaraz, because when you see him on court, he always looks happy when he plays. Even if he's losing, he might, give a look or two at his players box. He could, speak something in frustration, but then on the next 2 or 3 points, you could see him smile, right? So that is where I feel that he looks to be really happy on court. He enjoys the tennis, and that is very important if you talk about longevity. Because if you're not happy on the court, or if you are feeling a lot of stress, pressure, it's hard to maintain the same level for years and years, right? But this is where I think he is different than most of the other players. He looks to be very happy on court. He is not afraid to try different shots, and it really gives a glimpse of how Federer was in his peak years. Even when he was losing, he could, try different shots, and he himself has said, Federer, in one of the interviews, that when he was in his prime, he just wanted to play some magical shots so that the crowd gets involved, and he wanted to try. He was just enjoying, and that is why he was able to play till 40 years of age, right? So Alcaraz has that thing, and he should continue with that motivation. So it will be important for him to maintain that in order to get the success, a similar success like the big four. Fitness is the key. Obviously, he has so much speed, and he puts so much in every point, which is like quite similar to Nadal and Djokovic. So he needs to take care of his health. He needs to practice, in a balanced way, and probably work on fitness throughout his career, because it's very important. And then the consistency, because there are tournaments almost every week. There are Masters 1000s, Masters 500s, then there are Grand Slams. The surfaces also keep changing, so he has to play consistently well to maintain his confidence. Just like when you see Djokovic or Federer or Nadal, once they got, their hands on their game and they were at their prime, they were playing very well on all surfaces and continuously for years and years. So that is what I think Alcaraz also needs to maintain. Now comes the big question, and the question that probably even Djokovic would be thinking: how can one beat Alcaraz? So, based on the analysis that I've done by looking at all his matches and trying to like understand what could one potentially do to Alcaraz, so the part of the answer comes from the results, right? So if you see the players who have actually given some trouble to Alcaraz, like Yannick Sinner, right? and probably someone who plays really aggressively. Nadal, for example. If you see Nadal's match against him at the Indian Wells, and I have a slide for that as well. And if you take a look at the US Open match between Alcaraz and Sinner, you'll understand, I think, because Alcaraz naturally is an aggressive player, even though he has grown on clay and clay might be his best surface. But if you see him play, right, just watch a rally where Alcaraz is playing, you'll find that he will rally normally for two or three shots, but then on the fourth or the fifth shot, he will inject a lot of pace in, whether it is the forehand or the backhand, and then he will try to win the point. Okay, that is something which I haven't seen in Djokovic or Nadal when they first started their game, but that I saw in Federer, because he was always pushing for the victory, pushing for winning the point, being aggressive, coming to the net, and just trying to close out, right? I see a similar feeling with Alcaraz as well. So it might look that he is very happy in the rally and he's just trying to construct the point, or he's just happy for the opponent to miss a shot. But suddenly, if you see one or two more shots, you will see a loud grunt from him, and then he would just inject a lot of power. Maybe he'll hit an outright winner. So that just proves that naturally he wants to be aggressive. He could go for a defensive style for a few shots in a rally, but then sooner or later he will go for a winner. And when it's working, it's really difficult to beat him. So again, what is the answer to this question? The first and foremost point that any opponent needs to take care of is that they have to be aggressive. They have to play aggressive against Alcaraz. He has got such a good defensive game, similar to Djokovic and Nadal. Plus, he has that element of uncertainty, because you never know when he will go for a massive winner or a massive shot and put you completely on the back foot in a rally, right? So you don't want to face that situation. So you have to be aggressive yourself. That is what Sinner has been able to do, or Nadal has been able to do, in order to win the match at that Indian Wells match. If you are able to see, you will find that, and the Sinner match as well. And even Djokovic, if you saw yesterday's or day before yesterday's match at Wimbledon, when Djokovic was aggressive, he was able to win points against Alcaraz. And on grass, Djokovic, I still feel, needed to be more aggressive. He would have got a better result, and maybe he would have won the match. So that is what we have to understand. Otherwise, if you are a defensive player, and sorry, I would also like to point out one more match, the Murray versus Alcaraz match, I think at the Indian Wells or Miami, which was a couple of years ago. There also, if you see how Murray was able to beat Alcaraz, was just because he was very aggressive. As soon as he got defensive, Alcaraz was able to win the points. But Murray was able to play aggressive. He understood that that is what he needs to do, and that is why he was able to beat Alcaraz. Now, Alcaraz is improving a lot day by day. He's not the same player that he was in 2021. So obviously, he has got more elements in his game now, but still, the approach remains the same. If you have a good serve, and if you can be aggressive, be the first player to hit an aggressive shot and take control of the rally, then it opens a lot of chances for you to win against Alcaraz. And that is why I think to beat him on clay would be the most difficult, and to beat him on grass or the US Open would be relatively easier. Like, when I say easier, I don't mean easier, but relatively easier than the other surfaces. So that's what I mentioned here. Play aggressive, serve well, and go hard at Alcaraz's forehand. As I mentioned, that is one of the weakness. Again, relative weakness as compared to his other parts of the game, where Alcaraz, if you go hard at his forehand and if it's a faster surface, then sometimes because he tries to go for a lot of power himself, and he defends less. He tries to be aggressive. Sometimes that could lead to a lot of unforced errors. And we saw that in all his matches, that if you go hard at his forehand, if you don't put the ball in the middle of the court, if you go fast, similar to how it happens with Nadal, right? If you go really hard at his forehand, sometimes when his down the line forehand is not working, which is his signature shot, you will see him lose a lot of points. So these are the three things that the other players can try probably. But if you're not playing aggressive, if you're not serving well, I think it's going to be almost impossible to beat this player if he is playing well. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you feel about this young player, and can he be in the same category as the big four. Thanks for watching.